All right, welcome back to another episode of Goat's Gravy, the Goat's Gravy, and happy to be here with Scotty in the studio today.
Baby.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's up? Doing great.
Awesome. And the reason we want to do a quick episode is just over the last few weeks, we've had a lot of conversations. We've been traveling all over the country with our jobs, and a topic that we visit all the time is follow-up and how important that is. And so we try to simplify the world of sales really into kind of three essential pillars. It's preparation, execution, and follow-up if you really break it down. And you can build off of those three. Today we want to talk about follow-up because the data says almost 48% of sales reps never follow up after that first interaction with the customer. And so, Scotty, let's just start by getting your take on this.
Yeah, let's jump in. I think follow-up is one of the key three pillars. There's no question about it. Tim Frank is one of my mentors. Always told me 24 hours. That's kind of an old school look at follow-up. I think it still applies. I'm reading, actually, I'm listening to the podcast, Atomic Habits. I know
It's a good one.
you've listened to that. And it's all about the process around what will allow you as a salesperson, as a sales leader, to follow up. Right. And it got me thinking about, it's not the goal, it's the process behind the goal. So I'd like to share a quick story about a mistake that I made recently with a customer. So we've got a large customer and we've got a cadence, an internal cadence, and then an every other week cadence with the customer. This customer asked us for a certain piece of data, slipped through the cracks. We got to him late and it wasn't that well thought through. And he came back to me, Billy, and we've all been chastised by clients before. He didn't threaten my life, but he was really upset. I think the last text, because I'm on a texting relationship with this gentleman, was very disappointed, exclamation.
Wow.
So I got my team together and I said, all right, well, what happened here? Right. It was my responsibility ultimately, because I own the executive relationship, to follow up. But the process, back to Atomic Habits, wasn't put in place to actually execute on that follow-up. So I think you got to be vulnerable and figure out where the holes are in your game, Billy, and really put a process in place. And I think that was the key learning lesson there, because without the crisp follow-up, we definitely took a step back. Now we're back on track, but we put a process in place to make sure that that was never going to happen again. And that process was around, surprise, surprise, AI, right? AI is listening to us or can listen to us at all times. It'll actually create the follow-up for you in same day. And that was a lesson learned on something that's simply slipped through the cracks.
Well, I think it's so important. The fact that some people don't do it at all. I appreciate you sharing an example of where you didn't have the best follow-up or timely follow-up. And it's great that at least a customer can let you know how you feel so you can do something, you can take action on that and figure that out. I know in my world, I take a lot of pride in trying to make sure I'm always following up as well. My rule of thumb is 24 hours, try to get at least an email out. If there's a more comprehensive follow-up that's needed because you're going to, put together kind of a project list or different things that everybody's going to own and do, maybe it's a couple days because you got to pull all that information together. But I do think just doing it in general is a muscle you've got to exercise on a regular basis. You just gotta have to have discipline around it. And it's unfortunate because too many people have a great first meeting and they go on to the next meeting and we're busy and we're on the go. But if you don't slow down to follow up and do those things really well, it'll cost you. And so it's interesting. We have some data here. Obviously this is from Claude. Speed wins deals. Literally 50% of buyers go with the first vendor who responds. It's not always about who has the best product or price. It's about who shows up first, how fast they can drive value add, and then follow up. And the immediate follow-up signals urgency, professionalism, and that you actually care and want to earn their business.
Yeah. When I think about customers and what they need, the initial engagement is so critical. And that initial follow-up is critical. Why? Because once they enter into a relationship with you, it's not so much how cool is your technology and how much money you can save them, how much risk can you mitigate, all of which are important. But when something goes wrong, they're testing you and your team and your ability to actually create action, right? So it's less about the sale, I think, from a buyer's perspective, and more about how are we going to get through the problems. So your initial feedback and your initial way that your team or yourself handles that is critical beyond the sale,
Right.
in my opinion.
Yeah. I got another one here for you. Most reps quit too early. Persistence is a massive differentiator. 80% of sales require 5+ follow-ups, yet 92% of reps give up after 4 attempts. That means the rep who stays in the game one touch longer than everybody else wins a disproportionate share of their deals. Not because they're better, but because they hung in there and continue to follow up.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the process. I'd be curious with you and your team. I haven't seen a lot of teams that really have a process around follow-up. I think it's just innate. They're going to do it. It comes off the top of their head in between 10 Zoom calls a day that I think a lot of the reps, a lot of the leaders are facing in today's environment. So is there any process that you and your team go through to make sure that time is allocated for the follow-up?
It's a great question. I'd say no. I don't think it's something that's a standard right now. I think it's kind of an expectation. Everybody knows the importance of doing it. You assume people are doing it, shouldn't do that. I do think it's something to build into the sales process. Make sure that, at least when you're doing your new hire trainings or you're doing any type of sales trainings, it should be a focus for sure.
Yeah.
But I would say there's an opportunity, at least I know in my own organization, there's definitely an opportunity. We have people that will share some templates and some basic follow-ups, but generally speaking, from those first meetings to maybe a more comprehensive group meeting, we should have at least some templates that people can pull from to leverage. But it's that important.
Yeah, and I think templates are important, and I think just the time allocation might be important. Now, what I do is I've got an hour on Friday mornings that is sacred. Now, customers trump that time at all times. So sometimes I miss it, but for the most part, I'll just shift it. And that follow-up is both business and personal, right? We talk a lot about mentorship.
Yep.
And you and I might give you someone to go mentor or maybe to assist with a job or just to overall mentor this individual. So think about follow-up beyond your customers and think about it in terms of your personal life. So there is an example I gave, I had a conversation. I said, Billy, would you please talk to this person? They canceled, right? We won't name names here, right before they were going to meet with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get the follow-up either, that never happened, right? So I'm urging the listeners here to think through, create time in your calendar weekly, but don't limit it just to customers. Limit it to your personal life as well, and personal development and mentorship. If you I just asking you a question, if you're going to really dig in with someone and mentor them, what are your expectations around follow-up?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love when you take time to connect with somebody and try to help them out, and sometimes it's people I reach out to help me out. I think it's important to give them updates on how things are going, right? So if you're someone that is leaning into, someone with more tenure and they're mentoring you and they're helping you, maybe they're talking to you about a specific topic and, prepping you before a meeting. Are you following back up with them to let them know how it went, how things are going? Just general updates are good too. When you reach out to someone in the beginning, trying to navigate or network for jobs. I've talked to a lot of young people, a lot of our friends, kids, and you might have a great interaction. You're emailing back and forth, you're forwarding their resumes. But I'll give you one example. There's someone I've been helping for the last few months and trying to get them a job interview, and they were non-responsive for a couple of weeks. Finally got a hold of them, find out they already got a job.
Yeah.
But I was still working on their behalf, trying to help them, and they never told me they got something. Yeah. And so, I think that is important.
Yeah, and I think connections on a consistent basis are important. And how can you leverage technology to assist you with that? So here's an idea that people may want to consider. You and I are starting to do a lot with Claude at work, personally, and really trying to dig in there. But say you've got 4 mentors that are in your life at different stages. Going into Claude and creating a project around and just labeling it mentors, putting in the details about Billy Shaw, what he's up to, and let technology give you ideas, number one, on good, crisp follow-up, and number two, have it create a schedule for you, right? And because staying in touch and following up on a consistent basis, whether it's a client or someone like yourself, shows thought. Leverage the technology, right, to help you A, create that process, and B, if you were to have a life event, right, and it's captured on the internet, that would be an interesting follow-up. Say it's a job change. That would be a great time to come in and say, hey, Billy, congrats on that move. Saw you move to XYZ. And what are you thinking? It's just let technology create the relevance and the process for good, crisp follow-up, which, cements those relationships that you're going to need over time.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think you said it well, use it in your, personal or professional. I think in the professional world, not just customers, but also if you're new, getting into the corporate world, you're working for an organization, often in the sales side, we're always reaching out to the internal team for help with different things. And we expect a response, but when they reach out to us, we're not so quick to respond. It's got to go both ways. When someone internally helps you out or gets you something that's going to help you go out and execute a sale, make sure you're keeping them in the loop with the success of that meeting. If someone's a sales operations person's helping you prep for a big meeting, are you going back to them, giving them an update on how things went? I think it's just really important to have that discipline to keep everybody in the loop and practice that follow-up. We had someone on the podcast a few months ago. They sent, handwritten messages to us, which was awesome. And you can use AI to help you have a polished professional message, but even putting it into paper, I have a couple reps I know best practice. They'll go have a great meeting. If it's a really big opportunity, they'll do a handwritten note, drop it in a FedEx and send it overnight so they get that right away versus the email. That's their way of differentiating themselves from other people that might be calling on that same customer.
Oh, I love that. It's old school. And what was coming to mind when I was listening to you is like omni-channel. What are the right channels to do the follow-up? Right. I am finding personally that I am getting behind on emails. There's so many emails that are flooded into my inbox. Some are personal, some are customers, some are internal. Then we've got Teams, we've got Slack, we've got snail mail. I love the idea on the big follow-ups, the handwritten note. Again, Tim Frank, huge proponent, and he taught me that as well. Some of these old school techniques of 24-hour follow-up, handwritten notes. When's the last time our listeners have received something in the mail that was a thank you? Right. It's a huge, huge impact. I just hired a gentleman to run a portion of one of our businesses. And what's on my mind for next week, I've got it in my calendar, Billy, handwritten note, just thanking him, right? He's been on board maybe 30 days. Simple. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Here are my observations. Looking forward to success in the future. Man, does that go a long way.
Just being intentional with making sure you're doing it. I think that's great. The last thing I'll share too is just to your point on the omni-channel. If you do 4 emails in a row and you're doing it, within a week to 2 weeks, higher probability, 46%, that they're going to unsubscribe or just ignore you and delete it. And ultimately, those are the people that tend to give up. If you space that out to 21 to 30 days on average in terms of email only follow-up, actually it serves you better to keep less time in between. You do an immediate first follow-up, but then you space it out so it's not too much.
Right.
But ideally, it's multi-channel. And the best, most effective way to follow up, if you get their phone number, is through text. You're going to have a higher probability of them responding and connecting with you on a regular basis if you do get that phone number and you're texting with them.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. But hey, the bottom line is just make sure you are focused on following up. That should be part of your discipline, day in and day out. Do it with your own family, do it with your friends, and it's going to serve you very well.
Yeah, and my parting shot is back to the process, right? Do you challenge yourself, challenge your team, challenge your friends? Do you have a good, crisp process in place? That technology, whether it be Claude or otherwise, some type of an AI tool that can help you in that pursuit. That is what great looks like.
Yeah. Love it, Scotty.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of The Goat's Gravy. We've shared some awesome insights and strategies aimed at enhancing your journey in sales. And the conversation does not have to stop here. So be sure to follow us on social media at The Goat's Gravy and explore more at thegoatsgravy.com. Your journey towards sales mastery is ongoing, and we're here to support you at every step. So thank you for tuning in today. Stay curious, stay driven, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.